The night my mother told me she wished I had never been born, she thought she was defending her husband. She didn't realize she was burying her relationship with her daughter. My name is Ava. I'm 30 years old now, but I was 22 when that dinner happened. My father had died when I was 11. After that, it was just my mother and me. We struggled, but we were close. Or at least I believed we were. When she remarried 5 years later, I tried to accept it. I told myself she deserved happiness. I told myself I could learn to live with the man she chose. I never imagined I would one day become the enemy for telling her the truth about him. That Sunday evening looked ordinary from the outside. The table was set neatly. The food was warm. My stepfather talked about work like he always did, confident and relaxed. My mother laughed at the right moments. If someone had walked in, they would have seen a normal family dinner. But for 3 weeks, I had been carrying something heavy inside me. I hadn't gone searching for proof of an affair. It appeared by accident on the shared tablet in the living room. A hotel booking confirmation. A woman's name in his messages. Conversations that were not vague enough to misunderstand. I checked twice before believing it. I told myself maybe it was old. Maybe there was an explanation. There wasn't. I tried to talk to him privately once. He brushed it off, said I was misinterpreting things, said I was imagining betrayal because I never fully accepted him. I wanted to believe him, not for his sake, for my mother's. But watching him sit at that table, speaking about loyalty and respect, something inside me refused to stay silent any longer. I need to say something, I said. My voice was steady. I had practiced being calm. My mother looked at me immediately. What is it? I placed my phone on the table and turned the screen toward her. I found this, I said quietly. She looked down. I watched her face as she read. I saw the moment she understood what she was seeing. I also saw the moment she decided not to accept it. This is inappropriate, she said sharply, pushing the phone away. It's real, I replied. I didn't invent it. My stepfather leaned back in his chair, annoyed. You're misreading a situation you know nothing about. Then explain it, I said. He didn't explain. He deflected. He accused me of resenting him. He said I had always wanted to see him fail. He made it about my attitude instead of his actions. What hurt was not his denial. It was my mother's reaction. She didn't ask him for details. She didn't demand honesty. She didn't look confused. She looked angry at me. Why would you bring this up like this? She asked. Why would you humiliate him? I'm not humiliating him, I said. I'm trying to protect you. Her expression hardened. You're trying to destroy this family. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I'm trying to tell you the truth, I whispered. And then she said it. I wish you had never been born. The room didn't explode. Nothing dramatic happened. The words just settled between us. I waited for her to take them back. She didn't. She stood there beside him. And in that silence, I understood something with painful clarity. She would rather lose me than admit he had betrayed her. I felt something inside me go still. Not anger, not even heartbreak, just stillness. Because when your mother tells you she wishes you never existed, there isn't much left to argue about. That was the night I stopped trying to belong at that table. After she said it, no one moved. Not because the room was frozen in shock, but because the decision had already been made. She had chosen him. My stepfather didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. He sat there quietly, letting her defend him, letting her redirect her anger toward me. That silence from him felt like confirmation. He knew he was protected. I stood up slowly. I didn't lie, I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar to me. Not loud, not broken, just distant. You're obsessed, my mother replied. You've never accepted him. I showed you proof. You showed me something you don't understand, she snapped. That was when I realized something painful. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unsure. She was actively choosing not to believe what she had just seen, because believing me would mean losing him, and she was not willing to lose him. "You think you're helping?" she continued. "But all you've done is humiliate this family." I almost laughed at that. Humiliate. He books hotel rooms with another woman, and I am the humiliation. "You deserve to know the truth," I said again, softer now. "I don't need you to protect me," she replied sharply. "I need you to stop interfering." Interfering, as if I had intruded on something private instead of uncovered something wrong. I looked at her carefully, searching for something. Doubt? Regret? Hesitation? There was none, only anger, and underneath it, fear. Not fear of betrayal, fear of losing the version of her life she had built around him. "You've always been difficult," she said quietly, the words cutting deeper because they were controlled. "Ever since he came into our lives." I felt that sentence settle inside me. So this was not just about tonight. This was years of resentment she had never voiced. "You're rewriting history," I said. "No," she answered. "You are." My stepfather finally spoke then. "Maybe you should take some time to think about what you've done." I looked at him. "What I've done," I repeated. He didn't respond, because what I had done was undeniable. I had told the truth. But truth is only welcomed when people are ready for it. My mother crossed her arms. "If you can't respect this house, maybe you shouldn't be in it." That sentence was not dramatic. It was practical, clear, and final. Something inside me shifted at that moment. The hurt was still there, but it was no longer loud. It was turning into something quieter, more permanent. "You don't mean that," I said. She didn't answer immediately. Then she did. "I meant what I said. I wish you had never been born." She did not soften it. She did not explain it away. She stood by it. And that was when I understood that staying would mean accepting it. Accepting that I was disposable. Accepting that I was the problem for refusing to look away. I nodded once. "Okay," I said, not because I agreed, but because there was nothing left to defend. I walked to my room and closed the door behind me. I could still hear them talking downstairs, their voices low, controlled, as if the real disturbance had already been removed. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around at the walls I had grown up with. Family photos, school certificates, memories of a time when my mother used to hold my hand and promise that we were all each other had. That promise had expired, and I knew, with a clarity that hurt more than any shouting could, that I would not sleep in that house again. I didn't cry while I packed. That surprised me. I thought there would be shaking hands, anger, maybe even a breakdown on the floor. Instead, there was a strange calm, the kind of calm that comes when something is already over, even if it hasn't fully ended yet. I opened my closet and pulled out a suitcase I hadn't used since college. I folded clothes slowly, deliberately. Not everything, just what I needed. A few sweaters, jeans, underwear, my laptop, my documents. The house was quiet downstairs. Too quiet. No one came up to check on me. No one knocked on my door. No one said, "Let's talk." That silence hurt more than the sentence she had thrown at me, because it meant she wasn't reconsidering. I stopped for a moment and looked at the framed photo on my desk. Me at 12, standing next to her at a school event. She had her arm wrapped tightly around my shoulders. We looked close. We looked like a team. I picked it up, then set it back down. Some things you don't take with you. When I zipped the suitcase, the sound felt louder than it should have. Final. Heavy. I carried it downstairs. They were sitting at the dining table again. The plates had been cleared. My stepfather was scrolling on his phone. My mother looked up when she heard my steps. She didn't look shocked. She didn't ask where I was going. "So you're leaving?" she asked. Her voice was steady, almost irritated. "Yes," I replied. "For how long?" "I don't know." She exhaled slowly, as if this were inconvenience, not loss. "You're being dramatic," she said. "You'll calm down." I stood there holding the suitcase handle. "I'm not angry. I said quietly. That confused her more than yelling would have. I just can't stay somewhere I'm not wanted. She didn't deny it. She didn't say, "Of course you're wanted." She didn't say, "I didn't mean it." She simply looked away. My stepfather didn't even lift his eyes. That was the final confirmation. I walked to the front door and opened it. The night air was cool, quiet, normal. The world outside had no idea that something permanent had just broken inside that house. Just before I stepped out, I turned back. If there was ever going to be a moment for her to stop me, that was it. She didn't move. Not a step, not a word. So I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout goodbye. I simply walked down the driveway with one suitcase and no plan. That night, I stayed with a friend. The next week, I found a small apartment. I worked extra shifts. I built something steady out of what felt like nothing. And I did not call her. Not out of pride, out of survival. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. At first, I expected a message, an apology, something. It never came. Instead, I heard through relatives that she and my stepfather were doing fine, that things were stable, that I had overreacted. Eventually, even that stopped. Silence became normal, and I built a life without her in it. Until one afternoon, 8 years later, my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in almost a decade, and everything I thought I had buried quietly came back to the surface when I saw her name on my phone. My first instinct was to let it ring. 8 years of silence does something to a person. It builds layers. It turns old pain into something organized, something manageable. I had arranged my life carefully around the absence of her, and now her name was flashing across my screen like none of that time had passed. I answered on the fourth ring. "Hello?" For a second, there was only breathing. Then her voice, thinner than I remembered. "Ava." It sounded unfamiliar, not because of the tone, because of the distance. "Yes." Another pause. I don't know how to start this." I waited. She used to fill silence quickly. That was one of her habits. Now she seemed unsure. "I'm sick," she said finally. The words were plain, not dramatic. "What kind of sick?" I asked. "Kidney failure." The sentence hung there. I leaned back against my kitchen counter and stared at the wall in front of me. My apartment was quiet. Sunlight came through the window. Everything around me was steady. "I'm on dialysis," she continued. "They've been testing family members." Family. It was the first time in years she had used that word with me. "And?" I asked. "You're the only match." I didn't respond immediately. The irony felt almost cruel. The daughter she wished had never been born was the only person who could keep her alive. "I didn't give them your number," she added quickly. "Your aunt did. I didn't think you'd answer." I almost didn't. Silence again. Not angry silence. Heavy silence. "I know I don't deserve anything from you," she said, and her voice finally cracked slightly. But I had to try. I closed my eyes. 8 years ago, she had stood in that dining room and erased me with one sentence. Now she was asking me to save her life. "I'm not calling to demand anything," she said quickly. I wanted to talk." "Talk." The word felt fragile. "You could have talked 8 years ago." I replied quietly. "I know." That admission surprised me. No defense. No blame. Just acknowledgement. "I was wrong," she said. The apology was small, unpolished, but real. "I was scared," she continued. "I didn't want to believe what you showed me. I chose the easier story." That sentence landed deeper than the illness, because it confirmed what I had always known. She hadn't doubted the evidence. She had doubted me on purpose. "And now?" I asked. "He left 2 years after you did," she said quietly. I didn't feel satisfaction, just exhaustion. "I've been alone since," she added. Alone. The word carried weight. For a moment, I imagined her sitting somewhere in a hospital chair, thinner, older, maybe finally seeing clearly what she once refused to see. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. I just needed to see you. The phone felt heavier in my hand. I'm not promising anything, I said. I understand, but I wasn't sure she did. Because understanding requires remembering exactly what you said. And some words don't disappear just because time passes. 3 days later, she was standing outside my apartment building. When I saw her standing outside my building, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller, not just thinner, smaller. Like life had pressed down on her over the years and reshaped her. Her hair had more gray in it than I remembered. Her shoulders curved inward. She wasn't wearing makeup. She wasn't performing. That was new. I stepped out of the lobby and stopped a few feet away from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Up close, I could see how tired she was. The kind of tired that doesn't come from one bad night's sleep. The kind that comes from months of dialysis. From fear. From regret. Ava, she said softly. Hearing my name from her mouth felt unfamiliar. Hi, I replied. Her eyes filled almost immediately. She tried to smile, but it didn't hold. I didn't know if you would come down, she said. I didn't know if I would either. She nodded slowly, as if she understood that she had no right to expect anything from me. For a few seconds, we just stood there. Cars passed. Someone walked a dog across the street. The world continued as if this meeting wasn't heavy. I'm sorry, she said. The words were simple. No excuses attached this time. I've replayed that night so many times, she continued. What I said? I can't believe I said it. I looked at her carefully. You can, I said quietly. You chose to. She flinched slightly, but she didn't argue. I was angry, she whispered. You were defending him. Yes. There it was again. Acknowledgement, not denial, not twisting. I thought you were trying to ruin my life, she said, and I was terrified of losing him. So you lost me instead. Her breathing hitched. Yes, the honesty hurt more than a lie would have. She wiped her eyes quickly. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I needed to say I was wrong, and I was cruel. Cruel. That word mattered. Because what she said that night wasn't heat-of-the-moment frustration. It was cruelty. You didn't just insult me, I said. You erased me. Her face crumpled slightly. I know. I studied her for a long time. 8 years ago, she stood in a dining room and told me she wished I had never existed. Now she stood outside my apartment, hoping I would help her survive. The reversal wasn't lost on either of us. They told me you're the only match, she said softly. I didn't ask for that. I didn't want to put you in that position. But you're here, I replied. Yes. She stepped a little closer, but not enough to invade my space. I'm scared, she admitted. That word surprised me. She had never admitted fear easily. I don't want to die knowing the last thing I said to my daughter was that I wished she'd never been born. The sentence settled between us. It was the first time she had repeated it herself. And hearing her say it again made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't expected. Some wounds scar, some stay open. I can't pretend that didn't change me, I said quietly. I know. You don't just forget a sentence like that. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her face now. I don't expect you to forget, she whispered. I took a breath, because this wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about choice. About whether I would let one sentence define the rest of my life, or whether I would define it myself. I need time, I said. She nodded again. I'll wait. And for the first time in years, I believed she meant it. I didn't answer her that day. After a few more minutes, I told her I needed space to think. She didn't argue. She didn't try to follow me upstairs. She simply nodded and walked slowly back toward the street, looking smaller than ever. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was confused about what she had done. That part was clear. The sentence she said 8 years ago had shaped the way I trusted people, the way I protected myself, the way I learned not to beg for love. But this decision wasn't about the past alone. It was about who I wanted to be now. I thought about the hospital room she would sit in, The machines, the waiting lists, the uncertainty. I imagined what it must feel like to depend on a call that might never come. Then I thought about that dining room, about standing there while she chose someone else over me, about packing my suitcase without being stopped. Both memories were real. Both belonged to me. The next week, I went to the hospital for compatibility testing again. I needed to hear it from a doctor, not just from her. "You're a strong match," the transplant coordinator told me. "Medically, this is a good situation." Medically, that word felt cold compared to everything else. No one in that office knew the history behind the blood type match. To them, it was simple. A daughter could save her mother. They didn't know that same mother once wished that daughter had never existed. I sat in my car afterward for a long time. If I refused, no one could force me. I owed her nothing legally. Some people would even say I owed her nothing morally. But I had spent 8 years building a life that wasn't built on bitterness. And I didn't want to start now. I called her that evening. She answered on the first ring. "Yes?" Her voice was fragile. "I'm going to do it," I said. She didn't speak at first. I could hear her breathing, uneven. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Yes." Not because I forgot. Not because I forgave completely, but because I wanted to choose who I was, not react to who she had been. "I don't deserve this," she said through tears. "No," I replied gently. "You don't." The honesty surprised both of us. "But I'm not doing this because you deserve it," I continued. "I'm doing it because I can live with that choice." There was a long pause. "Thank you," she said. "I need you to understand something," I added. "I do. You don't get your daughter back just because I give you a kidney." Her breathing hitched again. "I know. You don't get to pretend that sentence disappeared." "I won't. I can help you live," I said quietly. "But I can't undo what you said." "I understand," she whispered. And for the first time, I believe she did. The surgery was scheduled 2 months later. In those weeks, we spoke occasionally. Not about the past in detail. Not about rebuilding anything. Just logistics, medical forms, appointment times. We were careful, like strangers learning how to speak again. The day before the surgery, she looked at me across a hospital room and said, "I'm sorry I ever made you feel unwanted." I didn't answer immediately, because sorry doesn't erase, but it matters. And tomorrow, I would be giving her something she once said she wished she never had. Life. The surgery was successful. That's what the doctor said first. It went smoothly. "Both of you are stable." Stable. Such a simple word for something so complicated. When I woke up, there was pain. Yes. A deep soreness that reminded me my body had changed. But there was also a strange clarity. I had made my decision. No one had pressured me. No one had forced forgiveness out of me. I had chosen. A day later, they let me see her. She looked fragile in the hospital bed, pale but alive. Tubes and monitors surrounded her, but her eyes were clear when she saw me. "You're awake," she said softly. "So are you," I replied. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was no dramatic music, no emotional embrace, just two people sitting with the reality of what had happened. "You saved my life," she whispered. I shook my head slightly. "I helped," I said. She studied my face carefully, like she was trying to memorize it. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You don't," I replied gently. Her eyes filled again. "I was wrong about you," she said. That night, I was wrong in ways I can't undo. I took a slow breath. "You can't undo it," I agreed. There it was again, the truth without softness. She looked down at her hands. "I was ashamed," she admitted. "And instead of facing it, I turned it on you." That explanation didn't excuse anything, but it explained enough. "I spent years thinking maybe I should have stayed quiet," I said. "Maybe I shouldn't have said anything." She shook her head weakly. "No, you were right. Hearing that mattered more than I expected." "You chose him," I said quietly. "Yes, and you chose to say I shouldn't exist." Her voice broke. I will regret that until the day I die. I looked at her steadily. You don't have to regret it forever, I said. But you do have to remember it. Because that sentence shaped me. It taught me to build my own stability. It forced me to grow without depending on someone who could erase me in a moment of anger. I can't give you back those years, she whispered. I'm not asking you to. Silence settled between us again. But this time it wasn't hostile. It wasn't sharp. It was honest. After I was discharged, I went back to my apartment. Alone. She called me a week later. Not to demand. Not to assume closeness. Just to say she was recovering well. We speak occasionally now. Carefully. Slowly. Without pretending that everything is fixed. I gave her a kidney. I did not give her my childhood back. I did not give her the version of me that once waited at the door hoping she would stop me. Some words don't disappear. They don't fade with time. They don't soften just because someone apologizes. But they don't have to control the rest of your life either. That night at the dinner table ended something. Years later, outside my apartment, something else began. Not a perfect reconciliation, not a fairy tale forgiveness. Just two adults facing what was said and what was done. She once wished I had never been born, and I chose to live anyway, on my terms.